the way in which they have been sent in a military plane, handcuffed, as has been narrated in a harrowing detail by the people who have reached their villages and towns and houses. This was completely avoidable. Major problem with the foreign minister, he's a bureaucrat. He was informed, he was aware, but the political implications he underestimated. The furor and the outcry in the parliament, in the social media, and the general public, he should have alerted the prime minister if he was not capable of preventing this military plane and handcuffed Indians being brought back. He should have alerted the political leadership and briefed him, the prime minister, of the consequences for the government, for the party at large. This is the problem. He has no political background. He is not a politician, but he is trying to be a politician. Now he has landed the government in soup. The dysfunctional nature of our system. You see, the embassy there should have got all the details from the US authorities about the violation of their law from all of these people. We don't have any thing regarding what law they have violated and why they were arrested. The embassy just is completely out of the issue.
Does this episode now make Modi look weak-kneed? Does it make Modi look very, very weak? Or his weakness looks at its peak now? The weakest moment of Prime Minister Modi?
Yes, of course, no doubt about it. And it shows the compromising nature of his leadership. And if he goes and meets Donald Trump from this position, it shows whatever he agrees to on trade, on buying of weapons, on BRICS, on China, on Russia, whatever. It shows how far he is willing to compromise India's core strategic interest.
Hello and a warm welcome to HW News Network, your one-stop show, truth be told, for some engaging and thought-provoking conversations. Now, visuals of Indian nationals being handcuffed and deported back to India have shook the entire nation. Today, there was a ruckus in Parliament. Opposition protested as to how the insult and humiliation has been meted out to the Indian nationals. And just a short while back, Jaishankar, who's the Minister of External Affairs, he's told the Parliament that the deportation of illegal Indians by the US authorities was organized. And what exactly he has said is that the deportation of the US, the deportation by the US are organized and executed by Immigration and Customs Enforcement Authority. He said that the SOP of deportation by the aircraft used by the Customs Enforcement which has been effective since 2012, provides for the use of restraint. And we have been informed by ICE that women and children are not restrained. Now, the minister has given a statement in both houses of the parliament, but is it convincing enough? Why didn't India do enough to ask Donald Trump as to how he could met out this kind of a treatment to the Indian nationals? And these pictures have been doing the rounds on the social media since late day before last evening. In fact, the government is trying to obfuscate the whole issue because there was a PIB fact check put out yesterday saying that those visuals of the Indian nationals handcuffed are the pictures from Guatemala and not India. And today, there were interviews on the social media of the deportees where they narrated the harrowing tales, how they were brought back handcuffed. They were not allowed to go to the washroom, and they had to have their food with the chains on their hands and feet. So you can imagine the kind of mental trauma which the Indian nationals went through. But here you have a prime minister who's silent over it. And today, after much of sloganeering, much of the protest by the opposition, S. Jaishankar was forced to give a statement, and that statement also is not convincing enough. So, what do we make of this situation? Joining me now this evening is international affairs expert and diplomat Professor Aftab Kamal Pasha. Thank you so much, sir, for joining on HW News. And my first question to you is that these visuals of the Indian nationals being deported back to India, they were handcuffed, they went through a lot of mental trauma. And after all the sloganeering and protests put up by the opposition this morning, now, as Jaishankar says, that we are ensuring that US authorities don't give this kind of a treatment. But at the same time, he says that the Customs Department of the US uses restraint while deporting the nationals. Now, what does that mean? Is it like a dichotomy? And his statement comes like appears very ambivalent, having two meanings. What does it mean? The statement.
First of all, Donald Trump, during his election, he had made immigration number one issue, and he had made it very clear that such people who are arrested will be sent back the first available opportunity, and that is what he is doing. But deportation is nothing new, as the minister has acknowledged. But the way in which they have been sent in a military plane, handcuffed, as has been narrated in a harrowing detail by the people who have reached their villages and towns and houses, this was completely avoidable because the foreign minister knew and the embassy knew that in a similar situation, similar case, a tiny country like Colombia in Central America, the president there had refused to take their nationals who were handcuffed and brought in military plane. And the Americans had to accept that, and Colombia sent its planes and they brought back their citizens who were alleged to have violated US law. So if a small country like Colombia can show its policy in this way, this is extremely insulting and humiliating for a country like India, which claims it has strategic relations and very close partnership relations, people to people, and in all arenas. So this was completely avoidable.
Right. But Professor Pasha, you must have heard Jaishankar's statement. What does it look like? Does it look like an inappropriate cover up which he tried to do? And he very well knows that the Indian government was wrong. They should have raised this issue with Donald Trump long time back. And when they knew that this kind of an exercise will take place, how on earth did the Indian government not imagine the situation, if at all, as Jaishankar says it on record, that the Customs Department uses restraint? So, which means that they knew that the Indian nationals were being handcuffed. That's very clear from the statement.
You see, there is a major problem with the foreign minister. He's a bureaucrat. He was informed and he was aware, but the political implications he underestimated. The furor and the outcry in the parliament, in the social media, and the general public, he should have alerted the prime minister if he was not capable of preventing this military plane and handcuffed Indians being brought back. He should have alerted the political leadership and briefed him, the prime minister, of the consequences for the government, for the party at large. This is the problem. He has no political background. He is not a politician, but he is trying to be a politician. Now he has landed the government in soup. So in that way, he is trying to cover up through legal language that whatever he has said in both the houses of parliament, he is trying to cover up his own incompetence and the loss of face because of his incompetence, the country is facing. And no other country would tolerate this kind of a humiliating scene. Especially when you claim that the top leaders have close relations and strategic relations and all of that, which now makes a mockery of the entire relationship. People are questioning, how a friend can humiliate and insult its citizens, being handcuffed and paraded. And also the press secretary highlighting the photos.
But now Donald Trump is scheduled to meet Prime Minister Modi. He will travel. Modi is going to travel to America. Do you think that in the backdrop of all what has happened, how Indian nationals have been handcuffed, do you think that Modi at all should meet Donald Trump?
Well, whether what you say and what I say will have no impact. His program has been chalked out. He is desperate to meet him because he was thinking he would be invited for the inauguration, but that for some reason did not happen. But I want to address the larger point. Donald Trump has made outlandish statements on Greenland, Panama, Mexico, China, Canada, BRICS nations, and all of these things, and also now the latest on Gaza. See, all this shows, and also his practice, that soon after he announced a tariff on China, Mexico, and Canada, he has backtracked after talking to them. So this is his opening bargaining rhetoric, and the same thing has to be seen in that light. You see, he wants to put pressure on India through this kind of gimmick that Modi would be weakened, and from a position of weakness, he will negotiate with him, and he will extract as many concessions as possible. So a helpless, weak, and dysfunctional government, as they think, vulnerable government, they think that they can put their agenda aside and get maximum concessions, because India has been resisting accommodating America in innumerable ways, which they have done. Over the last 35 years since P.V. Narasimha Rao's government, we have made so many concessions in favor of the United States. But the United States has not been accommodating our interest, whether it is Pakistan, our allegations, our statements about cross-border terrorism and supply of weapons to Pakistan, and now in Bangladesh, and on many, many, many issues which I can reel out. For lack of time, I will not go into the details.
Right.
So this friendship, strategic friendship, is just one-sided. So in that way, it is a continuation, and now they want to browbeat Modi, and he has already won the tariff. So in the budget also, we have reduced so many items which we import with less tariff
But
now. So in that way, Prime Minister Modi has to keep this in mind, that Trump's policy is to announce in a big way, and then if we don't show firmness and resolve, he will try to browbeat and force us to compromise with our fundamental interests.
absolutely. But Professor Pasha, I also want to talk to you about the kind of treatment which the Indian government has meted out to its own nationals. Now, look at what the comparisons are being made on the social media, that the Colombian president went to receive his own nationals when they were deported from US. We did not have anyone from the government side to receive the people at the airport. In fact, the media was barred from entry. Then they were just whisked away as if, they are criminals. What would you really say to that? Is it like an insensitive treatment which Modi government has meted out to its own people? First of all, they undergo all the trauma of coming back on after a 20 more than a 24 hours journey where they are handcuffed, and then here when they land, they are received by the police, by the state officials, by the CBI, and they are trying to look for a criminal. Now, what does this attitude of the Modi government show about its own people?
You see, from the Prime Minister to the ambassador in Washington, it shows the dysfunctional nature of our system. You see, the embassy there should have got all the details from the US authorities about the violation of their law from all of these people. we don't have any thing regarding what law they have violated and why they were arrested. The embassy just is completely out of the issue. So they were just informed, and without asking for any details which should be made available, they have not disclosed only the names of the people, name, and their states were mentioned, how many women and children. But the nature of offenses, we are assuming, the government is assuming that all are criminals and illegally entered, so on and so forth. There could be many genuine cases also. So in that way, we have assumed that whatever America says about our nationals, may be correct without proper verification, authentication,
Right.
all of these things.
I
It shows the way the embassies function and the government functions.
But I also want to talk to you specifically about a point which as Jaishankar made in his statement, and he said that the deportation by the US is organized and executed by the Immigration and the Customs Department, and they use restraint. So, is Jaishankar trying to tell the whole country or the world that, look, we were so incompetent because it is the ICE's protocol that they use restraint, they use handcuffs, and which is why we were so helpless and we couldn't say anything? Does it mean that? Because all over it's being splashed that the Indian nationals were handcuffed and the government was silently watching. So, what kind of a clarification has he given by saying that it is the ICE which uses restraint and it has been using it for quite many years?
ICE is not an extra constitutional structure in the US. They listen to the Minister of Secretary of Justice or Homeland Security or any other body under which they function. And what the minister is saying is, completely unacceptable because he has not made any effort to discuss this in detail when he was there for the inauguration. He was busy with something else, only God knows. So, in that way, it shows he was not conscious of the implications of what and he assumed that, like in previous cases, these deportations would be routine and normal. And what Trump has been saying aggressively against these migrants, he did not understand, or it went above his head. So in that way, he has landed the country in this kind of shame and brought the government this kind of situation where even the prime minister, I think, will be shocked at the incompetence of his own minister. Because ultimately, prime minister being a politician, he has to answer, and it is his government's image which has taken a dent because of the lack of proper handling by the foreign minister, who is a bureaucrat, who has no political idea of how a small incident which he thinks can bring down the government in the eyes of the public. And also, his claim of a Vishwa Guru now that, America has humiliated you and you are going and meeting, and, you don't care for a citizen, your own citizen. Imagine an American citizen illegally crossing from Nepal or Bangladesh into our border. Do we dare to arrest him and handcuff him and parade him and send him back in our military plane? Can Jaishankar think about it or discuss even that? I don't think he will dare do this kind of a situation. So in that way, the bureaucratic approach has landed us in this kind of a soup.
Professor Pasha, just day before yesterday, 2 days before, when Prime Minister was giving a reply to the motion of thanks on the President's address, he made tall claims about the foreign policy. He was looking down on the Congress that they don't understand foreign policy. Now, when you see these pictures of handcuffed Indians coming back to India, you have a helpless government staring at the Indian nationals who are handcuffed, and they're staring at them helplessly as if they can't do anything when it comes to dealings with Donald Trump. Does this episode now make Modi look weak kneed? Does it make Modi look very, very weak? or his weakness looks at its peak now, the weakest moment of Prime Minister Modi?
Yes, of course, no doubt about it. And it shows the compromising nature of his leadership. And if he goes and meets Donald Trump from this position, it shows whatever he agrees to on trade, on buying of weapons, on BRICS, on China, on Russia, whatever. It shows how far he is willing to compromise India's core strategic interests. So in that way, we are at the crossroads in the international system where we have to show enough firmness that we have independent policy vis-a-vis China, Russia, BRICS, and America cannot browbeat us. Can he do that? I don't think so. He has already lost the battle, and Trump will exploit, and the American administration, all of them will make maximum use and put pressure on us. And I think it will land the country in deep trouble in future.
Professor Pasha, another issue is that of the US military plane landing in India. Now, how serious is that issue when, on other instances, the Indian government sent its own civilian aircraft to evacuate Indians, say, for example, from Ukraine and other, war-torn states? Why couldn't India use its own civilian aircraft to bring back its own nationals? Wasn't India aware of the implications, or was India, prostrating before Donald Trump that okay, we are okay with you sending your military aircraft? Is it not a breach of India's sovereignty? U.S. military plane landing on the Indian soil.
You see, this is the question most members of parliament will ask Jaishankar. You were aware that America is sending the military plane, and you took it easily. You are not concerned about our sovereignty, about our country's prestige, and you have allowed this dishonor for the country. And he has no answer to it because he doesn't understand all of these issues. Because he is immersed in files and bureaucratic procedures, so on and so forth. So in that way, the sooner rethink is done on his continuation, because you see, if you take a quick survey, bird's eye view of our foreign policy, for the last 2-3 years, we have been having series of setbacks. There is no dynamism, there is no vision, there is no correct policy direction. He is convinced that only America can save India, which is a very narrow way of looking at it. And anything, even to utter a statement against America, he is afraid. And he advises likewise to the Prime Minister. I don't know for what reason he is beholden to him. And all this negative things are happening, and this will continue if this slide will continue if he continues in office, and the same policy is framed on those lines by the Prime Minister also, because now is the time to respond to aggressiveness of Donald Trump, who thinks he can do whatever he wants, or in violation of everything the rules-based order stands for, and it hurts the national interest of many countries, including India. He openly threatens BRIC countries. He openly says India should not identify. In other words, he is telling what policy India should pursue. I mean, this kind of approach is completely negative in international relations, and India, I think, should take up a stand, and more importantly, India should mobilize. Again and again, I am repeating, India is not a banana republic like any small country which is completely helpless, utterly dependent on America. We are not dependent on America. Even if Trump wants this trade, 120 billion bilateral trade, if he puts 200% sanctions, we can find ways and means to export to other countries. There are other countries where technology is available. We are not so helpless and dependent. When the Americans didn't give a single computer in the 90s, we were able to develop. They did not give any help in our nuclear energy. We developed space. They put sanctions. I would recall after the 1974 peaceful nuclear explosion, they sanctioned us. They mobilized Canada, Japan, all the countries to put sanctions, and they were lifted only in 2010 when Obama came here. So we have a long record of American policy which has been negative and which has retarded our development. But still, we have
By
developed, and it is not much to the liking.
But Professor Pasha, by any chance, you think of a possibility where Prime Minister Modi may reconsider his decision about going and meeting Donald Trump? I mean, in the backdrop of all what is happening, there's a backlash, a political backlash, a major one which has happened now. Opposition demanding strong answers. S. Jaishankar has come out with a statement, but not convincing enough. And what would it really what would the Indian nationals think? The ones who have returned, and many of them have lost their land, many have lost their money. And in fact, one of the nationals interview I saw, and they demanded the debt which they had incurred. They said that let the state government or the center pay for my debt. Now, do you think that Modi will try and reconsider his decision at all about meeting Trump, or he will continue as the program was?
No, 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 no. I mean, yours is a very wishful thinking. I don't think he is bothered about this. It is a non-issue for him, and he is more than anxious to meet his dear friend Trump and listen to him. It will be sort of a one-sided conversation, and he is used to this dictating terms kind of a thing. So in that way, he wants to make up what he thinks, why Trump is unhappy, why he didn't invite him for the inauguration, and what he wants. And he'll be very happy to meet and hug him and have his cameras positioned to show him that his friend that was a storm in the teacup, and they are now again great friends. And America is a great friend, and it will help India. And he is doing the right thing, and all the Godi media and all the things will highlight that he is the Vishwa Guru, and the superpower has embraced him and shook hands, and they have cut a deal, and everything is good for the future development of 5 trillion economy very soon, and we will overtake China and the rest.
One last question, Professor Pasha, that yesterday Pawan Khera had put out a tweet saying that in 2013, the diplomat Devyani Khobragade, when she was strip searched, uh, Manmohan Singh government, the then Manmohan Singh government had registered protests. Sujata Singh was a foreign secretary at that time. She also registered protests, after which Nancy Powell had to say sorry. The American officials expressed regret over all what happened. And that happened only because Manmohan Singh government had the guts to register their protests. Now, what happens to Modi now? He has a bigger mandate. At that time, there was a coalition government. Modi being more powerful, a bigger Vishwaguru, what he claims, a bigger majority. But then also, he's so scared of Donald Trump that he can't even register a single word of protest. What does it show about Modi when you compare it with Manmohan Singh now?
Is it the government will, when if the press or any leader in America will ask him about the protest and adverse publicity about America and all these things, they say these are all anti-government, anti-national, and uh, uh, anti and all these things. We are sorry for what they are doing. We want good relations with you. They will speak in those languages. They will not say that because of your steps we had to face flack and criticism from the people, from the media, from the opposition, from members of parliament, so on and so forth. They will be very compromising type. They will not. I don't think they will show spine and say, "How dare you send our citizens handcuffed in a military plane?" Because they have accepted it. What is important now is no further humiliation should happen to Indians and to India, bringing more deportees under military plane. Under no circumstances should the government accept future deportees being sent by military planes and handcuffed and uh, whatever humiliation has happened. This should be seen as first and last, and the government should take a firm stand. Whether they will take, that's a different question. But the people have registered this in their minds that this government is incompetent, it is compromising country's core principles, and at the appropriate time they will take their decision.
Also, does it show, Professor Pasha, my last bit to you, that does it also show that Modi is not bothered about the dignity of the Indian nationals? Had he thought about it, I'm sure he must have taken some steps, but he didn't. So, does it show that he is not bothered about the dignity of the Indian nationals at all?
He is bothered, but you see, the advisors have told him that these are all illegal and they have violated American law. They are criminals or whatever, Khalistanis or whatever. They have been told. He doesn't have time to look into all of these nitty gritty. But the broad picture should be given by the foreign minister, who has shown his utter incompetence by not briefing the prime minister about the larger implications of what has happened, because he thought this is routine, and this is where the problem lies. Not with Modi. He has his. He is very conscious of his image. I'm sure he is having second thoughts whether to continue him as his foreign minister, because he has landed him in soup, and this was completely avoidable.
Right. Thank you so much, Professor Pasha. All eyes would be on what happens, in the coming days. And also, will India take a firm stand? Will Prime Minister Modi raise this issue when he meets Donald Trump, or he doesn't meet? Those are all big questions to be answered. Thank you so much, Professor Pasha, for joining HW. Thank you.
Stay ahead with our cutting edge news app. Instantly access the latest shorts in just 1 minute and breaking news in just 50 words. Download now for a smarter, faster news experience.